Well, good morning. It's great to see you. Welcome back to the shop where today we are going to test the old adage that says that you can't teach an old dog a new trick. In this case, the old dog is me. I'm 65 years old, and the new trick is welding. Now, why would I or you, or anyone else for that matter, residing in suburban America really need to weld anything? Well, speaking strictly for myself, I can say that from time to time I find myself in a situation where I need to mend something or I need to fabricate something out of metal. And really the best way to do that would be to weld it, but I don't have a way to do that. So I find that I can't repair that item and I need to go get a new item, or I find that I can't fabricate something and I need to go buy that something somewhere. Whereas if I just had a simple welder and I could make a quick weld to something, I got to solve that issue. Plus, let's face it, it's pretty cool to be able to weld. I mean, come on. Now, in the spirit of transparency, I want to disclose that this will not be the first time I've ever welded. Sometime well over half a century ago in junior high school, the shop class teacher, Mr. Murkowski, spent about a week showing us boys. Yes, the class was all boys. Girls were in home ec class. But he spent about a week showing us boys how to cut iron with fire and how to weld pieces of steel together with, I don't know, there was a couple of bottles, one filled with oxygen, one filled with some kind of gas. There was gauges. There was a helmet I couldn't see through. The whole thing seemed very complicated to me, but somehow I did survive that week, and I went on to graduate from junior high school. Although, honestly, I don't remember any kind of graduation ceremony back then like the kids seem to have these days. At the end of the year, you just went on summer vacation, which was really all I cared about. So anyhow, fast forward 50 years or so to last fall when I was at a garage sale and I saw this rig sitting there with a $50 price tag on it, which seemed like a fair price to me. So I talked the guy down to 40, picked it up, and other than plugging it in and making sure it had some kind of spark to it and sort of looked like it worked, I put it up on that shelf up there, and it's sat up there since then. And I figure it's time to get it out and fire it up and see what kind of trouble we can get into. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in being a part of and watching me try to figure this out, stick around. I mean, really, what could go wrong? So let's take a quick second and see what my $40 investment purchased. We'll start with this pile here. It came with, looks like some gloves that, are probably needed. Some kind of an apron, a little pouch that, can hold tools or whatnot. This I bought and picked this up because I guess you're supposed to have something like that to knock off some of the loose weld. I had this, so that's not part of the purchase. I did pick up these little triangle magnets here because I was at the store and they looked like they could be useful. This helmet came with it. It's supposed to be auto darkening. It's awfully light. It's just a piece of plastic. I'm hoping that it's some kind of improvement over the one that I used in Mr. Murkowski's, in Coach Murkowski's class, because I couldn't see anything through that one. I'm pretty sure that it's going to be at least an order of magnitude better than that old one, because, look at it. It's got flames. The graphics alone are pretty much guaranteeing a perfect weld. So that's the helmet. Let's turn our attention to the star of the show, really, the welder itself. I looked into this. This is made by Chicago Electric. It's a 90 amp Flux core welder, and we'll get into that in a second, but I believe it was distributed by Harbor Freight. I don't think they sell these anymore, but at the time I think this was their base model. They've got one these days that goes for about $120 that's pretty similar to this one, although I think it's 125 amps. And it comes with, some real basic features. It's got a wire feed here, speed, that controls the speed that the wire comes out of this nozzle here. It's got an on-off switch and a minimum and maximum power. That's pretty much it. It runs off a 120, which is nice. I don't have to plug it into a big honking 220 or 240 outlet. So I can just plug it into an outlet here in the shop and get to it. So why don't we do that? Why don't we get to it, stop this chit-chatting, and start welding some steel? So I've got things set up on the other bench over here just because it's going to be easier for me to sit down and steady myself on this. I've got some metal pieces here that I've prepped up, just ground down, got the rust off of it. so that when we finally do apply a weld, it's got something to hang on to. And I do have a long sleeve shirt on. I'm going to be wearing these gloves. I've got some long pants on, just because I understand there's going to be some splatter, and you know, that can get a little bit uncomfortable in terms of little burns that you get. So I think it's important, as much as I kid, to be as safe as we can. And let's get going on this. All right, we are looking through my helmet here, and you know, the one with the fancy flames on it, and we're going to give this a shot. All right, we got some spark. Let's see what that looks like. Well, that is, I guess, somewhat of a semblance of a weld. We'll see if we can improve on that as we go. Hopefully you can see that a little bit, but as you can see, even with the newfangled helmet with the flames on it, it's pretty hard to see. I'm going to see if I can adjust that helmet a little bit, see if my vision can improve to see what I'm welding a little bit more. All right, let's try this again. I don't know, one would say maybe marginally better that time. Looks like I've got a little bit of a pull starting here. Still don't really know where I'm going. I'm just kind of wandering off there, but it's hard to see through that helmet. But I'm going to keep on trying, maybe get a little more used to it. I think once I got a nice hot pool, I was able to kind of follow that a little bit. I don't know if you saw that on the video or not, but we'll give that a shot. Just keep on trying and see if we can't get more used to it. Okay, I've turned that wire speed up to 3. It was down here below 1, so it seemed like it was a little slow and wasn't feeding fast enough. So I'm going to increase it a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy on increasing the speed. We'll see how that goes. And then I think the other thing that I'm going to try is to hold this a little bit more upright. I was kind of doing this, and I think if I hold it a little bit more upright, maybe like that, I can maybe follow where I'm going a little bit better. Okay, phase 3. Let's see if these changes make any difference. A little bit more upright. Yeah, that's speeding a lot faster now. Still having a hard time seeing. Go a little slower on my forward movement. All right, let's stop and see how that looks. Yeah, when I started going a little slower, I was doing this. I was kind of trying to weave, and I was moving pretty quick. and just kind of felt like I was going too fast. And somewhere around here I said I was going to slow down a little bit, and I get a little bit more of a puddle with that. Quite a bit of splatter with that too. Kind of a messy weld, even in the best of circumstances, at least so far. But I don't know. I mean, am I seeing some improvement? Let me turn this off so I don't spark myself when I point with this. But you know, this was my first attempt. Obviously, you know, kind of laughable. This was a little bit better. I would say this might be marginally better than that. Certainly in this part here, again, just kind of trying to get a pool of metal built up that I can sort of work with. Again, really hard to see. I think it's just on me now. I don't know that there's any adjusting of the machine that's necessarily needed. Listen, if there are any folks out there who have any kind of experience with this, you know, professional welders, you know, people who do this for hobby, people who've got a lot more experience than me, second time welding in 50 years, you know, leave a comment and a suggestion and let me know what I'm doing wrong. Let me know if I'm doing anything right. I will be sure to check those. And then obviously we're going to continue working here. And at some point we're going to, you know, see if we can't join a couple pieces of metal together. But I'm going to keep on trying to drop a weld here and see how we go from there. So let's take a break here for a second and talk about this flux core wire welder. You know, what exactly is a flux core welder and why do we use it? So a flux core welder is a type of MIG welder. MIG stands for metal inert gas welder. And typically a regular MIG welder is wire fed like this one, but it uses a gas to shield the weld from various different atmospheric anomalies that would cause the weld to be weak. And in this case, instead of that inert gas, maybe it's nitrogen or something like that, the flux core welder has a flux inside this little wire here. Actually, the core of that wire is full of flux, and that shields the weld from those impurities that would cause the weld to be weak. So unlike in Mr. Murkowski's class, Coach Murkowski's class, this welder does not require any kind of inert gas, doesn't require gauges, doesn't require balancing oxygen or nitrogen or anything like that just to get the right mix. What we need is already in the wire. So it's just simply a matter of feeding the wire. It's just one less variable, and it's probably, as far as a beginner welder goes, it's probably I don't want to say the best, but it is probably the most popular beginner welder setup that you can get. It's the simplest, least expensive, and you know, for most of us hairy homeowners, it'll get the job done, whether we're fixing a rake or welding up a bracket, something like that, you know, around the household. It'll get the job done most of the time. So that's what we've got here. As uncomplicated as it can be, there still is a technique that needs to be learned and mastered in order to be halfway decent at this. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to get back to running some beads and seeing if we can't get a little bit better with each passing attempt. All right, let's give this another shot. I don't know if it's just me or maybe the light's a little bit better, but I'm starting to see that weld a little bit better. At least part of the pool of the weld. Okay, it has been a little while, and I have managed to lay down, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 more of these beads. You know, this was my first attempt, second attempt, and I kind of went like this. First attempt, second attempt, third, fourth, fifth. I think down around here, things started improving a little bit. I was able to start seeing the weld a little bit more. And then up here, things really changed. And what I ended up doing was, instead of just one long weld where I just kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going, is I would pulse it on and off. I would do a layer or two and then stop for just a split second. I'd be able to kind of reread where I was going and where I was in relation to, the puddle. And then I would hit it again for another layer or two, and then I would stop and kind of read it and start and stop and start and stop. And that seemed to work out really well there. Then I waited for a little while. One of the things that I forgot to mention was that you have to let it rest a little bit. For every 3 minutes that it's on, you have to let it rest, or I'm sorry, for every minute that it's on, you have to let it rest 3 minutes. So if it's on for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you have to let it rest for 7 minutes and 30 seconds before you can turn it on. It gets pretty hot. I mean, we're melting metal here. It takes a little while. Once I finished this one up and looked at it, and it kind of felt like that was my best effort so far, I continued with this one and this one. I think this one is my best one so far. You can really kind of see the layers kind of laying on top of each other. And I'm getting to the point where I'm confident enough that these welds would hold if I were to try to join a couple of pieces of metal together. Not so much these. I wouldn't trust those to hold anything, but these are getting there. And so my next step is to see if I can't just weld a couple of pieces of metal together. I'm going to try, this piece right here, just a little 90 degree. I'm going to hold it with these little magnets that I got, and that's going to be the next step. So let's give that a shot. Okay, here we are. We've got a couple pieces of metal set up. We're going to just try to weld these two pieces together. They're set up in a perpendicular manner, and it's just going to be a simple straight weld for about 6 inches. We'll see if we can get that done. Wow. Oh gosh, that is the worst bead I'd put on a piece of metal, I think, ever, even back in Mr. Murkowski's class. And I think the reason is I couldn't see a thing through that helmet. It's not the welding that necessarily is the challenge for me, although it takes some getting used to in terms of finding the right distance and how much feed wire you want to have out of the nozzle, and the right temperature and speed at which to move. All of those things I think I can adjust to, I don't want to say easily, but readily enough, if I could just see what I was welding, and I just can't. And so that's the biggest challenge for me. I don't know if it's the helmet or not. Again, in the comments, should I invest in a better helmet? I don't want to be that guy that always blames the equipment. So if there's something that I'm doing that we're not doing, or that you as a viewer might have some experience with and some suggestions, I'm all ears. Let me know. In the meantime, I think that's going to do it for this episode. At least at this point, I'm going to keep trying. But as far as this episode goes, I think we've gone about as far as we could go. Now, to answer the question, can you teach an old dog new tricks as far as it pertains to welding? I think we made some pretty good progress, at least initially. And as I said, I think if I could see it, I could weld it. But I can't work on my technique if I can't see what I'm working on. So that's my biggest challenge right now. And until I get over that hurdle, there's really no point in continuing this little experiment. But, I appreciate you guys sticking around. Thanks for stopping by. I hope to hear from you in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.